The mark wasn't long, and it was only around 3 m long. It wasn't deep either, and it was just a shallow mark. It was impossible to notice if one didn't look carefully. Of course, all of that wasn't the main point. The main point was that it had been left behind by the unfettered one. Xianxia gazed at the man before him. He'd met this man in the past. It was the armless man. Based on what the Tao progenitor had told Xianxia, the man was the dean of Martial Emperor Academy. The armless man walked over to the door of light. "Do you know what this is?" Xianxia shook his head. The armless man said, "I don't know either." Xianxia was at a loss for words. Meanwhile, the armless man continued, "It's a very unusual place. Besides that, 3 people have been here. 2 of them are the Martial Emperor and the person who left that mark." Xianxia spoke without thinking. "What about the last person?" The armless man smiled. "What do you think?" Xianxia glanced at him. Obviously, it was the armless man before him. The armless man gazed at the door. "3 people, all 3 of us have been here. But do you know what happened in the end?" Xianxia shook his head. The armless man explained. "The Martial Emperor went in and came out within 10 minutes. After that, he gave up his position as dean and chose to live like a villager. As for the other one, he was in there a while longer. He only emerged around 2 hours later. However, he still did come out from in there. After that, he struck the door with his sword. That attack left that mark on the door. Just that mark. Just that mark." Xianxia could discern something special about those words. The armless man continued. "This door can be said to be the most mysterious place in our large universe." Xianxia suddenly asked, "Is this the Stargate?" "The Stargate." The armless man gazed at Xianxia. "You really do know a lot. It should be that prehistoric expert who told you, right?" Xianxia nodded. The armless man shook his head. "You should be more vigilant against them. They aren't ordinary, not ordinary at all. As for this door, I don't know if it's the Stargate or not. In any case, it isn't something you can enter right now." Xianxia asked, "Have you gone inside?" The armless man shook his head. "Those 2 fellows came back out, so I think it won't end well for me either." Xianxia spoke solemnly. "Even the unfettered one couldn't resist whatever was on the other side?" "Not at all." The armless man said. "Based on that fellow's strength, not to mention now, even if all the civilizations in the history of our entire large universe came back, they wouldn't be able to do anything to him. There are no more than 2 reasons why he came outside again. 1, there was nothing there that aroused his interest. 2, the people in there were strong, but they weren't strong enough. So he just left that mark behind. This mark carries 2 meanings. Firstly, it means he has a little interest in it, and he only left that mark behind because of his interest." Xianxia asked, "What about the second meaning?" The armless man said, "The second meaning is, what lies at the other side of this door isn't ordinary at all." Xianxia fell silent for a while, and then he said, "Senior, what do you think about the end times?" "What do I think?" He glanced at Xianxia. "What do I care? It has nothing to do with me." Xianxia was speechless. The armless man continued, "You're the leader of the human race now?" Xianxia nodded. The armless man shook his head. "Do you feel like you don't have enough problems? Or do you think it's cool to be the leader of the human race?" Xianxia replied, "No. It's just that since I've come this far, there are things that I should shoulder." A wisp of praise flashed through the armless man's eyes. "That's a good way to think. Men can never give up their responsibilities. All right, forget that. Go back to Martial Emperor Academy with me." Xianxia asked, "Why?" The armless man smiled. "Are you interested in taking control of Martial Emperor Academy?" "Taking control of the academy?" Xianxia frowned. "Senior, what are you trying to say?" The armless man fell silent for a moment and explained. "When the Martial Emperor gave Martial Emperor Academy to me, I wasn't interested either. However, I had to so that I could make him owe me a favor. Of course, I still have no interest in being the dean. But since you've been swept into the conflicts of the normal world, Martial Emperor Academy should be useful to you. If you take control of it, it'll be very helpful to you and the human race." Xianxia asked, "Why me?" "Not you," the armless man said. "You can't be the dean. Yang Yi felt speechless. The armless man continued, I'm talking about that little girl. If she's willing, she can take the position of dean at any time. Of course, when she's the dean, it's no different than you being the dean. In any case, she'll be your wife sooner or later, right? Yang Yi was at a loss for words. Meanwhile, the armless man roared with laughter. You're really quite amazing. I know a bit about her temper. And you're really amazing to have been able to get her. Yang Yi glanced at him. Was it Senior Martial Emperor who wanted her to become the dean? The armless man shook his head. It's my own intentions. Of course, he won't have any objections. Because no one knows better how suitable she is. Moreover, she has obtained the Martial Emperor's inheritance. And she's the only person in the large universe who enjoys a reputation that's on par with yours. If she chooses to be the dean, she would be able to convince everyone to support her. Now, it just depends on whether she is willing. Meanwhile, a Nanjing appeared by Yang Ye's side. The armless man gazed at her, and she gazed at Yang Yi and said, I'm willing. Yang Yi spoke softly. Don't force yourself if you don't like it. I'm not afraid of anyone. He naturally knew that he was the biggest reason why she'd accepted it. Because if she took control of the academy, it would be equivalent to Yang Yi possessing extraordinary support. And Nanjing said, It's fine. Don't worry. Yang Yi wanted to say more, but she said, It's decided. Yang Yi glanced at her and said, All right, let's go. Meanwhile, the armless man said, I'll take you there right now. Oh, it's best if she assumes her position today. Then I'll have one less burden. Ha ha ha. As soon as he finished speaking, he waved his right hand and vanished on the spot with them. At the moment they left, Yang Yi and Nanjing hadn't noticed that the armless man had glanced at that door of light. Martial Emperor Academy. The middle-aged man brought Yang Yi to Martial Emperor Peak in the academy. It was the main peak here, and it was where the core of the academy resided. The armless man's voice resounded throughout the academy. All students, come to Martial Emperor Peak immediately. The dean. At this moment, clamorous noise filled the academy. It could be said that even some elders rarely met their dean, because he was too mysterious. He was so mysterious that while everything knew the vice dean, they subconsciously allowed themselves to forget that the academy had a dean. Now the dean was back. It didn't take long for the students to rush over. It wasn't just the students, even some elders and instructors had rushed over. In next to no time, Martial Emperor Peak was bustling. The armless man stood on the platform in front of Martial Emperor Hall, and there was an old man on his right. It was the vice dean. As for on his left, a Nanjing was there, and Yang Yi was by a Nanjing's side. Countless students stood below the platform, and all of them were looking at the armless man with curiosity in their eyes. The armless man glanced at them and said, Since I've been the dean, I rarely reside in the academy, and the vice dean has been managing everything. I know I've been derelict in my duties. Now, I announce that I won't be the dean from this moment forward. Clamorous noise resounded. He was stepping down. The dean they hadn't seen for so long was stepping down as soon as they met him. All of them were shocked. Meanwhile, the armless man added, As for the new dean, I've found one for you. He gazed at a Nanjing. I presume she's not a new face to all of you. From this moment onward, she'll take the position of dean. Of course, you can step forward if you're not satisfied. So long as you can defeat her, you can be the dean. A Nanjing. Everyone gazed at a Nanjing. She was naturally not an unfamiliar face to them. After all, she'd been in the academy. As for being dissatisfied, there probably wasn't a single person who would feel like that. Even if they did, they wouldn't dare to step forward. She was an existence on par with Yang Yi, and she could kill sages in an instant. The armless man glanced at the surroundings and said, Looks like you have no objections. Then it's decided. From today onward, she'll be the new dean. He gazed at the vice dean and said, I'll be troubling you to work hard for a few more years. The vice dean laughed bitterly. He was quite depressed because both the deans were people who wouldn't really manage the academy. It was how the martial emperor did things, and it was how the armless man before him did things too. Moreover, the armless man was worse because he was practically never present in the academy. If the academy hadn't been in trouble and required the armless man to deal with it, he may have never met the armless man. Yet now, Nanjing was taking the armless man's position, and based on the situation, she was probably just like the last two deans. A busy life. Suddenly, a voice resounded, "Dean, I can be the dean if I defeat her?" Everyone looked toward the source of the voice, and they saw a young man around the age of 20. He wore a white robe and had pride all over his face. "It's senior brother Yun Fan," someone exclaimed. On the platform, the armless man gazed at the vice dean, and the latter said, "A genius who just joined. I forgot to tell you about him. He's really good, and his natural talent is amazing." During this period that she wasn't in the academy, he defeated all the seniors in the academy, and it took him less than 10 moves each. He's good in every aspect except he's too proud. Suddenly, the young man gazed at Nanjing, and then he raised his thumb before twisting it down. 10 moves? If I can't defeat you in 10 moves, then I'll walk on my knees from now on. Everyone here was stunned, speechless. 10 moves. The surroundings fell silent. Who was Nanjing? She was someone who'd killed sages. But Yun Fan actually spoke about defeating her in 10 moves. The armless man smiled and didn't say a word. He just gazed at Nanjing. A moment later, Nanjing vanished from the platform, and she was in front of Yun Fan when she appeared again. The latter reacted very quickly. He'd clenched his fist at the instant Nanjing had vanished, and then he slammed his fist forward. Bang! An explosion resounded, and then a figure was blasted 300 m away. It was Yun Fan. As soon as he stopped himself, Nanjing appeared in front of him, and then explosions resounded incessantly. Bang! 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 A strange scene appeared here. The insufferably arrogant Yun Fan was being slammed around by just one of Nanjing's legs, and he actually couldn't fight back at all. Everyone here was speechless. Yang Yi shook his head. Firstly, Yun Fan did have some skill, because he'd been able to take 3 of Nanjing's moves. He'd forcefully stopped the first 3 of Nanjing's moves, but that was all. Nanjing's strength was something that could overcome even a few sages. As for Yun Fan, he was too young. Around 10 minutes later, Nanjing stopped and returned to the platform. Meanwhile, Yun Fan was lying on the ground. The surroundings were deathly silent. He'd lost just like that. Nanjing glanced at Yun Fan and said, "You don't have to walk on your knees. Just be a little humble." Humble. At this moment, all the students' admiration of Nanjing skyrocketed. She was strong, a woman, and so young. So, as far as the students were concerned, making an old man a dean was naturally not as fun as having a young and strong female dean. Just like that, Nanjing became the dean of Martial Emperor Academy. The first female dean in the academy's history. The peak of the mountain at the back of Martial Emperor Academy. The armless man stood there while Yang Yi and Nanjing were by his side. "I'll be leaving for some time." Meanwhile, the armless man suddenly said, "Be careful, both of you. Regardless of whether it's the prehistoric experts, Nether Pavilion, the God Race, the Three Paths, or the Universe Sprite, they aren't easy to deal with. Or I should say that some forces are itching to make a move. The large universe may seem calm right now, but it actually just needs a fuse." He gazed at Yang Yi and continued, "And you are very likely to be that fuse." Yang Yi was puzzled. "Why?" "The Sprite Lord." The armless man spoke softly. "That little fellow's abilities are far greater than you can imagine. She's very likely to become someone everyone fights for. They aren't fighting for her now because it isn't time, but when the time comes, you may be unable to deal with their attacks." Yang Yi asked, "Are they all very strong?" The armless man nodded. "Very strong. According to the information I received, the God Race's patriarch Shurtian may be about to awaken. He's not someone easy to deal with at all. Then there's the Nether Pavilion. In short, both of you should be careful. Besides that, you can take a look at the Academy's library. Some information about the large universe that the Martial Emperor gathered is kept there. There's all sorts of information. Remember it all because it'll be useful to you. Meanwhile, Yang Yi suddenly asked, "Why are you helping me?" The armless man glanced at Yang Yi and said, "You'll find out in the future." He didn't say another word and vanished into the sky. Only Yang Yi and a Nanjing remained here. A short while passed before Yang Yi gazed at a Nanjing. "Let's go have a look at the library." And Nanjing nodded. They went to the library, and no one stopped them as they went up to the highest level. After that, Yang Yi started reading through all the information within the library. Just as the armless man had said, they were very useful to him, because there were records about the God race, void spirit race, and prehistoric race. While it wasn't complete, it could be said that this information couldn't be found anywhere else. There were even some records about the initial civilization. Unfortunately, there wasn't much. Besides that, there were some records about the four paths and all the races. These records were very detailed. Their enmities, conflicts, how those conflicts arose, everything was recorded. He'd learned a lot. 5 days later, they left the library. Outside the library, Yang Yi gazed at a Nanjing and said, "I'm heading back to the human dimension. You probably can't return with me, right?" She nodded. "I have some things to deal with. Let me know if anything happens." Yang Yi nodded. "You too. Don't forget to notify me if you need something. Others may do it all themselves, but I won't, and you shouldn't either. Understand?" She glanced at him and said, "All right." Yang Yi smiled, and then he transformed into a ray of light that vanished into the sky. Once Yang Yi left, the Vice Dean appeared by a Nanjing side. The Vice Dean glanced at the direction Yang Yi had left toward and said, "If he's willing to abandon that Sprite Lord, he will be able to avoid a lot of trouble. If he's willing to use the Sprite Lord to make a trade, he'll be able to get the best for himself." And Nanjing spoke softly, "Then he wouldn't be him." The Vice Dean nodded and gazed at her. "Martial Emperor Academy will be swept into it, right?" And Nanjing gazed at the Vice Dean. "Do you think the Academy can stay out of everything in these times?" The Vice Dean shook his head. And Nanjing said, "How many sages do we have?" 9. The Vice Dean continued. "They are all sages that relied on themselves to attain the sage realm, and 2 of them possess unfathomable strength. They can be said to be halfway into the progenitor realm. However, they are in closed-door cultivation at all times and rarely show themselves." And Nanjing asked, "Will they obey my command?" The Vice Dean hesitated for a moment and said, "I'm afraid it'll be difficult. After all, you're very young." And Nanjing said, "Tell them if they don't obey me, then they have 2 choices. Either die or leave the academy." The Vice Dean was shocked. "You?" And Nanjing closed her eyes slowly. "Since I've taken over the academy, I need absolute obedience. I don't like people scheming against each other, and I don't like wasting my breath. If they refuse to obey, then leave my territory. Otherwise, I'll kill them." The Vice Dean suddenly asked, "What if all of them refuse?" She gazed at him. "Then I'll kill them all." The Vice Dean felt speechless. And Nanjing said, "So long as I'm here, no one will dare to attack, even if Martial Emperor Academy has no sages." As soon as she finished speaking, she turned around and left. The Vice Dean laughed bitterly. He'd underestimated her a little. In the beginning, he'd thought she was only taking the position of dean and wouldn't actually take control of the academy. But now it seemed like that wasn't the case at all. And Nanjing was really taking control. As for those sages, they didn't know how terrifying she was. It was really not difficult for her to kill a sage. The most terrifying part was that she had Yang Yi too. If anything were to happen to her in Martial Emperor Academy, then based on Yang Ye's temper, he would definitely destroy the academy. Trouble. The Vice Dean shook his head and vanished on the spot. After he left the academy, Yang Yi shot up into outer space. He planned to return to the human dimension. Suddenly, a woman appeared in front of him. Surprise flashed through Yang Ye's eyes. "It's you!" It was Nether Maiden from the Nether Pavilion. Nether Maiden. Yang Yi was extremely surprised. He hadn't expected to see her. She glanced at him and said, "Someone wants to see you and talk to you. Come with me." She turned around and left. Yang Yi frowned slightly from the sight of this. She was acting a little strangely. Yang Yi hesitated for a moment and followed her. Yang Yi glanced at her as they traveled. Has second sister regained consciousness? Nether Maiden nodded. Yes. Yang Yi was delighted. How about eldest sister? Nether Maiden replied softly. She's awake too. Yang Yi smiled and gazed at Nether Maiden. All 10 of you sisters. No, I mean all 11 of you sisters are together again. She nodded. What about your hall master? Yang Yi asked. Your hall master Xianxia. She has shown herself, right? Nether Maiden stopped and gazed at Yang Yi. Snowy is with you, right? Yang Yi's eyes narrowed slightly. He gazed at her for a long time and smiled. She is. Why? Nether Maiden shook her head slightly. Nothing. Come with me. She sped up once she finished speaking. Yang Yi glanced at her. In the end, he still chose to follow her. They traveled through outer space, and she only stopped around 2 hours later. At this moment, there was a pitch-black palace standing in space around 1 kilometer in front of them. Yang Yi looked over, and he saw 2 words above the palace. Nether Palace. Nether Palace. Nether Maiden gazed at Yang Yi. Let's go. She transformed into a ray of dark light that entered the palace. Yang Yi didn't hesitate to follow her. Once they entered the palace, a delicate voice came from afar. Welcome, young brother Yang Yi. Right, I know you're a straightforward person, so I won't beat around the bush. Your sprite lord. My nether pavilion needs your sprite lord. I wonder if you can give it to us. Yang Yi closed his eyes slowly. No. A woman in a purple dress stood before Yang Yi, and there was a cloak which was as thin as a cicada's wings hanging from her shoulder. Yang Yi had seen her before. It was Xianxia. Xianxia, the pavilion master of Nether Pavilion. As soon as Yang Yi refused, the surroundings fell silent. Or to be more precise, the atmosphere here became quite tense. Xianxia gazed at Yang Yi, and he met her gaze. A long time passed before she smiled. Is there no room for discussion? Yang Yi shook his head. None. Xianxia smiled. How stubborn. As she spoke, she stretched out her right hand, and the space around Yang Yi instantly froze. Meanwhile, a sword howl resounded. A moment later, Xianxia moved 300 m back while blood seeped out from the corner of Yang Yi's mouth. Their first collision. She sized up Yang Yi and nodded. Needless to say, with such strength at your age, you deserve to be called a monstrous genius. Yang Yi said. Does your nether pavilion plan to take her from me by force? Xianxia appeared in front of Yang Yi again. What if I say yes? Yang Yi smiled. Then try me. A smile curled up on the corners of her mouth. Looks like you're very confident in yourself. Or perhaps, you're confident in that person who stands behind you. Yang Yi shook his head. The nether pavilion is very strong. If eldest sister, second sister, and the others join forces, then killing me should be very easy. But so what? There are some things and some people in life that have to be protected, even if the consequence is death. As for whether I can succeed at protecting her, I don't know. All I do know is that I'll try my best to protect her while I live. And even if I die, I won't regret my choice. He gazed at Xianxia and continued. I have a connection to the nether pavilion, but if you choose to take her by force today, then we'll consider the relationship between us to be in the past. If your nether pavilion wants to fight, then I'll fight you at any time. Nether Maiden remained silent while she stood at the side. Fight! Xianxia smiled. Yang Yi, you can't afford to. My nether pavilion could even annihilate the Confucianist path, let alone you and the human race. I only brought you here because of the past relationship you had with my nether pavilion. Anyone else would be dead now. Yang Yi smiled. Then don't. Because I have no relationship with you. Xianxia was just about to speak when a voice came from the side. Just go. Yang Yi turned around, and he saw 10 women walking over slowly. They were led by Sky Maiden. Sky Maiden, Blood Maiden, and the others were by her side. Yang Yi gazed at Blood Maiden, nodded slightly and smiled. Eldest sister, second sister, long time no see. Sky Maiden gazed at Yang Yi and nodded slightly, and then she gazed at Xiao, Pavilion Master Xiao. He has helped our nether pavilion repeatedly in the lower dimensions, and he saved our lives on many occasions. If you intend to act against him, then all 11 of us will withdraw from the nether pavilion. Withdraw. Yang Ye's heart felt warm. They were still the same sisters of the nether pavilion that he knew. Xiao's face turned slightly gloomy when she heard Sky Maiden. A long time passed before she gazed at Yang Yi. Leave! Yang Yi glanced at her, and then he gazed at Sky Maiden and the others. Come visit the human dimension another day. He didn't hesitate to leave once he finished speaking. Xiao spoke indifferently. Looks like all of you've chosen his side. Sky Maiden replied. Can our nether pavilion not survive without the Sprite Lord? Survive? She laughed coldly. Do you know how many powerful organizations existed in the large universe all those years ago? But what happened in the end? All of them vanished. It was the end times that made them vanish. Sky Maiden replied with a question. Having a Sprite Lord guarantees our survival through the end times? Xiao said. Of course not. However, we'll have a chance with a Sprite Lord. If we don't have a Sprite Lord, we'll all die once the end times arrive and spirit energy vanishes. She glanced coldly at them at this point and continued. He was able to leave this time, but he won't be that lucky again. She turned around and vanished on the spot. Once she left, only Sky Maiden and the others remained here. Meanwhile, Blood Maiden suddenly gazed at Sky Maiden. Why did she give up? Sky Maiden replied indifferently. That wasn't her main body. All of them were shocked when they heard this. That wasn't her main body? Blood Maiden said. Eldest sister, you're saying that was just a clone? Sky Maiden nodded, and then she gazed in the direction Yang Yi had left toward. The current nether pavilion isn't the same nether pavilion we knew in the lower dimensions. It's too unfamiliar to us now. Blood Maiden said. Eldest sister, do you plan to leave? Sky Maiden fell silent for a long time and shook her head. Let's forget about that for now. She glanced at them and continued. From now onward, work hard on your cultivations. No matter what happens in the future, we need strength to face what comes. They nodded. After he left the Nether Palace, Yang Yi entered outer space once more. This time he'd been absolutely shocked. While he seemed unyielding and composed in the Nether Palace, he'd sensed a few vicious auras lock onto him. If Xiao attacked, then even if Sky Maiden and the others didn't help her, he would probably be unable to leave. The Nether Pavilion was more mysterious and powerful than he'd imagined, and he now understood why the armless man had told him to be careful. He hadn't been overconfident, and the main reason he'd gone was Nether Maiden. It was because he trusted his friend. His trust wasn't misplaced as well. They hadn't tried to harm him. Suddenly, Snowy emerged from within the pagoda. She stopped Yang Yi and started waving her claws swiftly. Moreover, she seemed extremely excited. Her entire body seemed to be in a state of extreme excitement. Yang Yi was stunned for a moment, and then he became excited as well. An instant later, he entered the primordial pagoda. At the second level of the primordial pagoda, a petite young woman stood before Yang Yi. It was none other than Zir, who'd been unconscious for so long. Zir, the violet mink. Zir gazed at Yang Yi with a smile on her face, but it was quite pale. Obviously, she hadn't recovered completely. Yang Yi walked over to her and hugged her gently. He spoke in a trembling voice. Zir, you're awake. Zir. She was one of the people who resided in the deepest parts of his heart. His feelings for Zir were a little different than what he felt for Xianxia and the others. Of course, it didn't mean that he loved her more, and it was that she'd gone through thick and thin with him. She'd always been within him in the most difficult periods of his life. It was always difficult to forget the person who'd suffered with you, and Zir was that person for Yang Yi. Zir didn't say anything, and she just hugged him tight. Yang Yi was everything to her. Meanwhile, Snowy pointed at Zir and started introducing her to Xianxia. Snowy and Zir had known each other for a long time too, so she had a deep relationship with Zir. Of course, she was afraid of Zir. After all, Zir was the person by Xianxia's side who held the most authority when it came to making decisions. Xianxia glanced at Zir and spoke softly, "Hello, big sister Zir." Zir gazed at Xianxia, and Xiangyi smiled. "Her name is Xianxia." Zir walked over to Xianxia, took Xianxia's hand, and smiled. "Hello." Xianxia heaved a sigh of relief when she heard Zir greet her so casually. She glanced at Zir, hesitated for a moment, and said, "Big sister Zir, are you not human?" Surprise flashed through Zir's eyes. "You noticed?" Xianxia grinned. "It was a guess." Zir glanced at Xianxia, and then she gazed at Xiangyi. Xiangyi smiled. "I'll explain later. Right, are you all right now?" "She's almost fine." Meanwhile, little Sky, who'd been quiet until now, suddenly walked over. "She's just slightly weak and can't endure much. So, she can't go outside for now." Little Sky paused for a moment and continued, "I want to return to Sky Continent." Sky Continent. Xiangyi gazed at her. "Why?" Little Sky spoke softly. "I can sense the changes in the world, and I want to be with it. Moreover, I can sense that the spirit energy there is drying up. If I return—" "No." Xiangyi shook his head. "Little Sky, the end times is coming, and problems will arise in all worlds. If I let you return now, I wouldn't be able to rest at ease. I really wouldn't." Little Sky walked over to Xiangyi. "Responsibility. You have yours and I have mine. I'm the spirit of Sky Continent, and it needs me now. I'll at least be able to slow down the rate that spirit energy is vanishing if I'm there. In that way, I can help even more living beings find a new way out of this situation." Xiangyi wanted to say more, but Little Sky added, "I've made my decision. Don't stop me, all right?" Xiangyi's eyes suddenly became slightly moist. He was very well aware what would happen to Little Sky if she returned. She wouldn't suffer a good end. She was planning to die with Sky Continent. Suddenly, Snowy started waving her claws. A short while later, Xiangyi's eyes lit up, and then he gazed at Little Sky. "Little Sky, since you want to return, then I'll go back with you. Snowy too. Let's join forces and see if we can save Sky Continent. All right?" Little Sky hesitated for a moment, and then she gazed at Snowy. "Can you?" Snowy blinked, and then she patted her own chest to display that she could. Little Sky thought for a moment and spoke softly, "Then let's try it." Xiangyi smiled. "All right, let's return to Sky Continent right now." Bang! Suddenly, the entire primordial pagoda shook violently. All of them were shocked. But it didn't take long for a smile to appear on Xiangyi's face. The sixth level. The sixth level of the primordial pagoda was open to him. Xiangyi vanished on the spot with everyone, and they arrived in front of a door. A pitch-black door. It led to the sixth level of the primordial pagoda. What was inside? Xiangyi couldn't help but feel anticipation well up in him. After all, he'd obtained great benefits from every single level. Xiangyi stopped thinking about it and entered through the door. The other side was completely empty. There was nothing there. Xiangyi frowned. Suddenly, Snowy inhaled, and then the surroundings were filled with spirit energy. An instant later, a ray of white light flashed and appeared before Xiangyi. Armor. It was a completely violet armor that had appeared before Xiangyi. It had flowing light coiled around it, and it was clearly not ordinary. The primordial armor. Suddenly, a voice resounded, and then a figure appeared here. The Tao progenitor. It was the Tao progenitor, but it wasn't his main body. The primordial armor? Xiangyi gazed at the Tao progenitor. The Tao progenitor nodded slightly. When the world was created, there were 3 types of energy: chaos energy, primordial violet energy, and natural spirit energy. Primordial violet energy has such heaven-defying abilities because it's one of those 3 energies. The primordial armor is made from countless years of primordial violet energy. As for how long it took to condense, I'm not very sure. It was already there when I obtained this pagoda. However, it hadn't fully taken form. Now it's 80% complete. 80%. Xiangyi asked, "So it can be used now, right?" The Tao progenitor nodded. Yes. As he spoke, he gazed at it and continued. Once it has fully formed, it will become impenetrable and everlasting with the world. Xianxia hurriedly asked, can it resist the attacks of progenitors? The Tao progenitor glanced at Xianxia and said, it can. However, while it can, your body can't. So, if you fight a progenitor, the outcome will be that it will be unharmed but you will be dead within it. Xianxia was stunned speechless. The Tao progenitor continued, your own body is the best. All other external forces may be good, but you must not rely on them too much. Xianxia nodded. I understand. The Tao progenitor grinned. Let me help you. As soon as he finished speaking, he tapped his finger in Xianxia's direction, and the armor instantly transformed into a ray of violet energy that entered Xianxia's body. In an instant, Xianxia's eyes opened wide, and then cracking started to resound throughout his body. The primordial armor started to shrink over and over again, and it merged completely into one with Xianxia's body. Of course, it was because the Tao progenitor was here. Otherwise, it would be quite difficult for him to subdue the primordial armor. A long time passed before Xianxia opened his eyes, and then he issued a command in his heart. A thin violet armor swiftly appeared around him, and it stuck to him like skin. Meanwhile, the Tao progenitor said, try it. Xianxia nodded, and then he circulated his profound energy. A moment later, Xianxia's expression changed because it was madly absorbing the violet energy within him, and it only took half a breath of time for half of his profound energy to vanish. Xianxia gazed at the Tao progenitor. The latter grinned. The primordial armor is on the same level as the Sword Supreme. You were able to use the Sword Supreme because it hadn't awakened. If you use it now, you can only swing it twice at most right now. It's the same for the primordial armor. It requires the support of a huge amount of spirit energy, and you are only barely able to activate it right now. Moreover, it can only stay active for less than 10 minutes, or your profound energy will dry up. Less than 10 minutes. Xianxia laughed bitterly. It was the flaw in the greatness that was the primordial armor. Don't be dissatisfied. Meanwhile, the Tao progenitor said, it's something for progenitor realm experts to use. So, using it by force now will have its drawbacks. It'll be normal once your strength grows. Xianxia nodded. He sensed the primordial armor, and he felt extremely light like he was just a feather. After that, Xianxia started getting used to the armor, and it didn't take long for him to master it. So long as he was in battle, he could activate it immediately. Simply speaking, even 2 progenitor realm experts couldn't kill him in an instant by launching a surprise attack against him. Once he was done mastering the armor, Xianxia left the pagoda and traveled to Sky Continent with the others. Sky Continent was in the medium universe, and it only took him less than 3 days to get there with his current strength. Sky Continent. The spirit energy throughout Merak's system had become extremely scarce. Moreover, Xianxia could sense that it was still vanishing incessantly at a rapid pace. Xianxia entered the continent, and he noticed that it was filled with a heavy aura of death. It was unlike the Sky Continent he once knew. Little Sky stood silently by Xianxia's side. Ah! Suddenly, a shrill cry came from afar. Xianxia looked over, and he saw a few middle-aged men attacking 2 old men. One of the old men's arm had flown off into the air. Meanwhile, a middle-aged man grabbed that arm, or to be more precise, he grabbed the spatial ring on it. The middle-aged man glanced at the spatial ring, and then a ferocious expression appeared on his face. There's less than 100 immortal crystals in here. He suddenly slammed his palm at the old man while he spoke. Bang! The middle-aged man was blasted away before he could even strike the old man. He flew over 1 kilometer away, but he wasn't injured. Everyone here stopped and gazed at Xianxia, because it had been Xianxia who'd done that. Xianxia flicked a spatial ring to the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man glanced at it, and then his expression changed because there were 2,000 immortal crystals in there. 2,000 was a huge amount of wealth. Xianxia asked, is this very common? The middle-aged man gazed at Xianxia and spoke with bewilderment. What? Xianxia asked. Is robbing immortal crystals like this common? The middle-aged man glanced at Yang Yi, hesitated for a moment, and replied, "Yes." Yang Yi replied, "Tell me in detail." The middle-aged man asked, "Who are you?" Suddenly, a sword pressed against his forehead, causing his face to turn pale. At this moment, he knew the young man before him far surpassed him in strength. He didn't dare to think about anything else and immediately explained. For some reason, the spirit energy on the continent grew extremely scarce. Even some of the sacred grounds have pitiably scarce spirit energy left. Now, the continent is in chaos for the sake of seizing spirit veins and immortal crystals. Every power and independent cultivator is doing it. He laughed bitterly at this point. If we don't have profound energy, wouldn't we cultivators be no different than ordinary people? Yang Yi nodded. "You can leave." The middle-aged man and the others hesitated for a moment, and then they turned around and walked away. They heaved sighs of relief in their hearts when they noticed that Yang Yi had no intention to stop them, and then they sped up. Meanwhile, the heavily injured old man walked over to Yang Yi, and one of them cupped his fist. "Thank you for saving my life." Yang Yi glanced at them. "It was nothing. Go on." They cupped their fists again and left. Once they left, Yang Yi gazed at little Sky, and he noticed her head was lowered while seeming to be lost in thought. Yang Yi rubbed her head and spoke softly. "Don't worry, Sky continent wouldn't be destroyed." She looked up at the sky. "I've never seen the spirit energy vanish like this. It seems like the spirit energy is just vanishing naturally. And that's extremely terrifying." It was vanishing naturally. Yang Yi understood what little Sky meant. It meant that it wasn't done by man, and it was the intentions of the heavens. For example, the spirit energy in the universe was a fixed amount, and it had been fully used up. Could it be created? Yang Yi didn't know. As far as he was concerned, it was probably impossible. As for Snowy, she probably didn't have the ability to create spirit energy limitlessly. Yang Yi stopped thinking about it. He called Snowy outside, and then he gazed at her. "Can you sense it?" Snowy glanced at the surroundings and nodded. Yang Yi smiled. "Can you make the spirit energy here return to normal?" Snowy thought for a moment and started waving her claws. "Conditions." The little fellow was listing her conditions. A short while later, Yang Yi smiled. "No problem. You can have as many roasted goats as you want once the spirit energy here recovers." Snowy's condition was roasted goats. Yang Yi naturally agreed to it. Snowy cracked a smile when Yang Yi agreed, and then she glanced at the surroundings. After that, she spread her claws, and the entire world started to tremble before them. With Snowy at the center, the spirit energy in the surroundings suddenly converged toward her. And then Yang Yi and little Sky could sense the world was soundlessly changing. Bang! Suddenly, a dark red bolt of lightning tore through the clouds from high above and descended toward Snowy, changing the laws of the Heaven Tao. It wasn't tolerated by the Heaven Tao, changing the laws of the heavens and the earth. It was naturally the laws of the universe that were being changed. Everything in the world had laws that it followed, and Snowy was restoring the spirit energy in Sky continent. That was no different than going against the heavens. She was truly defying the heavens at this moment. Snowy blinked when she saw the blood-red lightning, and then she gazed at Yang Yi with slight fear in her eyes. Yang Yi grinned. "Don't worry, I'm here." Snowy cracked a smile when she heard him. After that, he appeared in the sky, and his face remained expressionless as he gazed at the blood-red bolt of lightning. It was much stronger than any of the lightning he'd ever encountered, and the energy it carried was sufficient to instantly annihilate a sage. So Yang Yi didn't dare to act carelessly. In an instant, a sword appeared in his grasp. Judgment. As soon as it appeared in his grasp, a ray of sword energy shot up and slammed against the lightning. Boom! The powerful sword energy Yang Yi released made the lightning shake violently, but it didn't shatter. Meanwhile, another ray of sword energy shot up into the air and struck it. Boom! A loud explosion resounded once more. An instant later, the lightning exploded apart. But at the instant that happened, countless arcs of electricity scattered throughout the sky, and they descended swiftly. Suddenly, Little Sky said, "Don't let them hit the ground." Xianxia nodded. He stomped his foot down, and then countless rays of sword energy shot forward. They tore through the sky like shooting stars, and it was an extremely shocking sight. A short while later, all of the arcs of electricity had been blasted into bits by Xianxia's sword energy, and the sky returned to calm. However, Xianxia felt like something had descended upon him. It felt extremely uncomfortable. Xianxia looked up at the sky and said, "Little Sky, do you think the destiny that people speak, is it a person or something else?" Little Sky shook her head slightly. "I don't know." She paused for a moment and continued, "Everything in the universe, including us, definitely exists for a reason. If destiny is a person, then it was that person who created us. Yet now that person wants to destroy us." Xianxia smiled. "If it really is a person, then wouldn't it be too terrifying? Moreover, I think that if someone could attain such a level and be able to create all things in this universe, then that person would have no need to use the end times to annihilate all things in this universe. It would probably just take a wave of the hand." He looked up at the sky, and there was a trace of icy coldness in his eyes. Earlier, he was certain that something had descended upon him. It was an invisible thing. According to his own inference, something had taken note of him after he destroyed that divine lightning from before. A smile curled up on the corners of Xianxia's mouth, and then he gazed at Snowy. "I'm saving Sky continent today." The spirit energy in Merak's system gradually returned to normal with Snowy's help. However, it didn't make Xianxia and Little Sky happy, because returning to normal didn't represent it returning to how it had been. Snowy had merely used her ability to make Merak's system have spirit energy again. Simple speaking, she'd extended its life, but it wasn't eternal. It had merely slowed down its death. The end times. Xianxia fell silent. At this moment, he finally understood how terrifying those words were. The spirit energy in the large universe wasn't made to go missing by man, and it was the living beings of the large universe which had finished the spirit energy. Spirit energy wasn't endless. So, it was an impossible problem. Karma. At this moment, Xianxia thought of that word. The living beings of the universe had used the spirit energy here without trying to limit themselves at all. So when the spirit energy in the universe vanished, their karma had arrived. It was the cycle of karma. Xianxia gazed at Snowy. "It's truly laughable that they are placing their hopes on you. Not to mention one sprite lord. Even 10 sprite lords couldn't save the large universe. After all, a sprite lord wasn't a god." However, the end times was really coming, and it was absolutely easy for her to survive with her special abilities. Xianxia shook his head, restrained his thoughts, and said, "If Merak's system really dies, then it's the fault of the people from Merak's system itself, including my fault. If I die from the end times, it's my own fault as well. So, come with me, all right?" Little Sky remained silent. Snowy waved her claws at Little Sky as well. She wanted Little Sky to come with them too. Xianxia added, "You can't do much if you stay here. Moreover, Merak's system will be able to last for a year or two now. But I'm sure you're aware of what will happen once the spirit energy in other worlds vanishes, while Merak's system still has spirit energy. At that time, the experts of countless words will come here to take the spirit energy here. In that way, it won't even take a year or two. Just a month or two will be sufficient for all the spirit energy to vanish. Who can resolve such endless and unstoppable conflict?" While he was advising her to leave, he decided that he would take her by force, if he had to. He would absolutely not let her die with Merak's system. It was utterly meaningless. Little Sky remained silent for a long time before she said, "This is my home, my roots." Xianxia shook his head. "You're wrong, Little Sky." She gazed at him, and he smiled. "Are Snowy and I not your family?" She was slightly stunned. Xianxia continued, "If you're able to help the living beings here by staying, then I would absolutely not stop you. But the problem is that your presence won't make a difference. Staying is no different than committing suicide. As for the home you spoke of, your home is where your loved ones are. Snowy and I are your loved ones, right?" Little Sky gazed at them for a long time, and then she suddenly grinned. Yang Yi heaved a sigh of relief when he saw this. Yang Yi glanced at the surroundings. There were countless worlds throughout the large universe where fighting and killing for spirit energy was going on. Yang Yi seemed to have thought of something, and then he shook his head and said, "When did I become so kind-hearted? I actually started thinking about things like this." As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished on the spot with Little Sky and Snowy. Yang Yi shot through outer space on his sword. He had to rush back to the human dimension and discuss the human race's future with the other sages. He was the leader of the human race, so he naturally had to find a way out for the human race. Moreover, the human race was definitely facing many problems now, like the drying up of spirit energy and killing each other. If it were in the past, he would naturally ignore it all. But he couldn't do that now. As soon as he returned to the large universe, he was about to travel to the human dimension when a strand of flames shot through space toward him. Yang Ye's eyes narrowed slightly. He was about to do something about it, but he was suddenly stunned a little. "It's you!" Meanwhile, the flames arrived before him. It dispersed to reveal the monkey whom Yang Yi hadn't seen for a long time. Yang Yi was about to speak when the monkey suddenly grabbed his shoulder. "I have something to discuss." He vanished on the spot with Yang Yi. Yang Yi felt speechless. The demon dimension. The monkey brought Yang Yi to the demon dimension. Yang Yi asked, "What is it?" The monkey glanced at Yang Yi and said, "Is the demon race enemies with you right now?" Yang Yi nodded. "Yes, but it doesn't matter. You're you, and the demon race is the demon race." He looked Yang Yi in the eye. "Help me take control of the demon race, and then the demon race will become allies with the human race." Yang Yi was slightly stunned, and then he asked, "You want to take control of the demon race? Why?" The monkey looked up at the sky. "To fight against the Buddhist path, and to find a way out of this for my spirit ape clan. Instead of following the sovereign of sky, it's better to follow you. We may have a chance to survive if we stay with you." Yang Yi thought for a moment and said, "Can't you take control of the demon race with your strength?" He shook his head slightly. "The demon god and the Buddhist path. I can only deal with one of them, the demon god and Buddhist path." Yang Yi thought for a moment and said, "I'm afraid it's not that simple. If you try to take control of the demon race, the alliance of all won't just let that happen. So, it isn't just the demon god and the Buddhist path, there's the alliance of all too. Most importantly, how many demon kings actually support you?" The monkey glanced at Yang Yi and said, "Xianxia." Yang Yi felt speechless. Xianxia. Yang Yi had naturally not forgotten that fellow. Yang Yi thought for a long time and said, "It's quite difficult. Allow me to be honest, if you can't get the support of all the sages in the demon race, then killing the demon god and annihilating those who oppose you will just cause the demon race to suffer severe losses." The monkey fell silent. Yang Yi continued, "It's not that I refuse to help you, but I think that we have to discuss it properly. Like, how will you get the support of the other sages in the demon race? If you can get their support, I'll help you deal with the alliance of all and the Buddhist path." The monkey thought for a long time, and then he gazed at Yang Yi. "There's only one way. You step forward and convince them, because you have the Sprite Lord, and you may be able to make them take our side by using that." The Sprite Lord. Yang Yi thought for a moment and nodded. "Then let's give it a try." Yang Yi gazed at the monkey at this point and asked, "Brother Monkey, what happened at the Buddhist path?" The monkey replied indifferently, "I killed a few sages, and then I had to flee when the Buddhist progenitor acted against me." The Buddhist progenitor. Yang Yi glanced at him. This fellow is really strong. After all, he'd actually been able to escape a progenitor. The demon dimension. Yang Yi decided to try in the end. Just as the monkey had said, if the monkey could take control of the demon race, then it was definitely good news for him and the human race. However, Yang Yi felt that they didn't have very good chances. It didn't take long for Yang Yi to meet Xianxia again. Xianxia was at the major Zen realm now, in the same realm as Yang Yi. Xianxia sized up Yang Yi and said, "You've grown too quickly." Yang Yi could be said to have been with Xianxia for a very long time. Yang Yi still needed his help all those years ago. Yet now, Xianxia had far surpassed him in strength. While they were both at the major Zen realm, Xianxia's strength far surpassed him. It filled him with all sorts of emotions. Xianxia sized up Xianxia and smiled. How have you been in the demon race? Xianxia shook his head. Just normal. I rarely participate in the affairs of the demon race. He paused for a moment and continued. Both of you really plan to take control of the demon race? Xianxia replied. We plan to try. If we really can't. Xianxia nodded and said, then let's go meet the sages of the demon race. They vanished on the spot. Demon God Hall. Xianxia, Xianxia, and the monkey arrived at the most mysterious location in the demon dimension, Demon God Hall. It was where the strongest expert of the demon race, the demon god, lived. Actually, the demon god rarely showed himself in the past, or it should be said that he practically never showed himself. But now that the end times were here, the demon god showed himself and reorganized the demon race. Moreover, no one in the demon race dared to against the demon god with the strength he possessed. As soon as they arrived at Demon God Hall, a middle-aged man appeared before them. The middle-aged man glanced at Xianxia and said, the demon god has been waiting. Xianxia shrugged and wasn't surprised by this. It was a supreme expert that they were facing, so it was impossible for him to be unaware that Xianxia was in the demon dimension. Xianxia, Xianxia, and the monkey entered the hall. There was a white-robed middle-aged man standing in the hall. He had thick brows, a square-shaped face, and a faint, dignified aura. He was the demon god. There were 10 other figures by his side. They were sages of the demon race. Suddenly, the demon god said, I'm quite surprised. Xianxia said, I have something to discuss with you. The demon god nodded slightly, and then he gazed at the monkey. If you willingly help our demon race, then we'll become the #1 force in the alliance of all. How strong was the monkey? Xianxia didn't know, but he did. Even he wasn't confident in his ability to defeat the monkey. The Buddhist path was that strong, yet it still couldn't do anything to the monkey. That alone was sufficient to prove how terrifying his strength was. The monkey replied indifferently, the demon race has submitted to the Buddhist path, so I will never do anything for the demon race. The demon god shook his head. We haven't submitted. We're just using each other. The monkey looked him in the eyes. As far as I'm concerned, you have. The demon god glanced at him, and then he gazed at Xianxia. Then me why you're here? Xianxia smiled. I hope the demon race will take my side. I wonder what you think about that. The demon god replied. Give me a reason. Xianxia smiled. I have the Sprite Lord, is that a good enough reason? That's your Sprite Lord. The demon god looked Xianxia in the eyes. If you're willing to give her to my demon race, then my demon race can take the human race's side. Xianxia walked over to the demon god. So, there's no room for discussion? The demon god replied indifferently. What do you think? Xianxia nodded, and then he gazed at the monkey. Brother monkey, your spirit ape clan is in my human dimension, so return there with me. There's no need to differentiate between races at a time like this. I'll give you absolute freedom. You can help the human race if you want, and I won't force you if you refuse. Moreover, I can guarantee that if the Buddhist path wants to look for trouble with you or the spirit ape clan, then I'll always be on your side. His thoughts were very simple, and it was to make the monkey stay in the human dimension. The monkey was so strong, so if he was willing to stay in the human dimension, it would be an absolutely good thing for the human race. Moreover, the human race was in dire need of extraordinary experts. Besides a Nanjing, he needed even more experts who could shoulder great responsibility, and the monkey just happened to be a suitable candidate. The monkey glanced at Xianxia. He was about to speak when the demon god suddenly said, Xianxia, are you really planning to fight the alliance of all until the end? Xianxia gazed at the demon god. It's all of you who want to fight me to the end. The demon god fell silent for a moment, and then he said, the end times is coming. Why don't all of us just sit down and have a talk about it? If the entire large universe joins forces, I believe we'll be able to find a way to survive. Xianxia glanced at him. He was quite surprised. He hadn't expected the demon god to say that, and the demon god didn't seem like he was being insincere. Xianxia replied, "You're right. Unfortunately, the enmity between my human race and the alliance of all isn't that easily resolved. I won't say more. We'll just take our own paths." Xianxia turned around and walked away once he finished speaking. Meanwhile, the demon god added, 3 months. If the Sprite Lord and you can't find a way out in 3 months, then we will be taking action. 3 months. Xianxia grinned. Don't worry. I'll find it. Xianxia turned around and left. Meanwhile, the monkey and Xianxia left with him. Once they left, an old man said, "Why aren't we taking his side?" The demon god closed his eyes slowly. "We've already chosen to take the Buddhist path and alliance of all side. Moreover, the situation may get worse for us if we take his side. He possesses the Sprite Lord, so there's definitely lots of trouble tangled around him. If we get entangled in it, then we may die before we even realize what hit us." The old man spoke solemnly. The spirit energy in many areas of our demon dimension has started to dry up, and conflict is starting to arise between the various clans. They're all fighting for spirit veins and spirit energy, and even the demon god hall may not be able to suppress them. He paused for a moment and continued, "Besides us, all the other races are suffering similar circumstances." The demon god nodded. 3 months. If he can't find a way out in 3 months, then all conflict will be moved to him. No one can solve this problem unless he can find a new way to survive for all of us. Conflict. Presently, even the residents of the large universe had started to fight for spirit energy. So, when the end times really arrive, the fight for spirit energy would grow even more intense. Or it should be said that every living being in the large universe would go mad fighting for spirit energy. At that time, they would need a way to move their attention and conflicts onto something else, and that would be Xianxia, who possessed the Sprite Lord. Why? Because the Sprite Lord could restore spirit energy. So, possessing the Sprite Lord was equivalent to possessing spirit energy. 3 months. As far as the alliance of all was concerned, it was the maximum period they could wait. At that time, they would attack, regardless of how monstrous Xianxia was. Xianxia naturally understood that too. After he left the demon god hall, Xianxia gazed at Xianxia and the monkey as they stood in outer space. "Senior Xianxia, brother monkey, do you plan to stay here or go to the human dimension with me?" The monkey fell silent for a long time before he said, "I'll go with you." The spirit ape clan was in the human dimension, and he naturally wanted to go to his clan. As far as he was concerned, the spirit ape clan was the only thing he cared about, and he wanted to find a way to survive for them. Thus, he had to make a choice to side with Xianxia or the alliance of all. Obviously, he'd chosen to take Xianxia's side. Xianxia smiled when he got the monkey's answer, and then he gazed at Xianxia. "What about you, senior?" Xianxia shook his head. "I'm of no help to you." Xianxia's future enemies were existences at the sage realm or above. So, as far as he was concerned, he would just be a burden to Xianxia. Xianxia walked over to Xianxia and said, "Brother Xianxia, you helped me so much all those years ago, and I will never forget it. I'm merely inviting you to the human dimension because we can stay together during the end times. No matter what the outcome is, we can fight together until the end." Xianxia gazed at Xianxia for a long time and said, "All right, I'll do it." Xianxia patted Xianxia and gazed at the monkey. "Brother monkey, it's the same for you. Don't go look for trouble with the Buddhist path for now. No matter what enmity it is, they will be resolved when the end times arrive. Now just cultivate well. There'll be many formidable experts for you to deal with in the future." The monkey nodded. "If there's one thing I'm good at, it's fighting." Xianxia roared with laughter, and his laughter spread throughout the sky. 2 hours later, Xianxia arrived at an unknown city in the human dimension. It was an empty city right now because the spirit energy here had dried up, and the people in the city had left. Xianxia gazed at it for a long time, and then he shook his head and walked in. He didn't ask Snowy to restore the spirit energy here. While Snowy could do that, it exhausted Snowy tremendously every single time she did that. Moreover, restoring the spirit energy here wouldn't make a difference. because other places would lose their spirit energy, and then the spirit energy here would be taken too. It was meaningless. Yang Yi just stopped thinking about it and sped up. It didn't take long for him to enter a restaurant, and there were around 20 people there. Yang Yi grinned as he gazed at the people before him. "You're all here." All of them nodded. The people before him were led by Amon, and there was Yu Jing, Qing Chuan, Mad Saber, Gu Li, and Ling. They were all Yang Ye's brothers who he'd met in the dead dimension. Yang Yi glanced at them and smiled. "No matter what race we're from, or what enmity our races have, we brothers will drink until we drop. Drink until they were drunk." The small restaurant was bustling. Everyone before him was a brother of his who he'd gone through situations of life and death with. Previously, he hadn't gone to meet them because the Alliance of All had a bounty on him, and he didn't want them to be put in a difficult spot. While he hadn't gone to see them, he had never forgotten them. Some relationships were strong and deep even if they weren't mentioned. Drink. Now that they were reunited, it was just as Yang Yi said. Regardless of enmity or race, there was only one thing for them to do: drink. The restaurant finally calmed down when dawn was about to arrive. Yang Yi sat on the ground outside the restaurant, and he was looking up at the sky while leaning against the doorframe. Meanwhile, Amon appeared by his side. She sat down. "What do you plan to do?" "My plan?" Yang Yi grinned. "What else? I'll just take it one step at a time." She fell silent for a long time and said, "According to my knowledge, the Alliance of All will attack you if you can't find a way out of this." Yang Yi nodded. "I know." He glanced at the others in the restaurant and said, "Actually, I'm not worried about myself. I'm worried about all of you. The end times is coming, and many will be used as cannon fodder. I plan to make all of you stay with me, but I'm sure you're aware that we're all from different races, so your clans or sects will be affected by your decision to stay with me." Amon asked, "Is there really no other way?" Yang Yi gazed at her and smiled. "Snowy has been by my side through thick and thin for so many years. I would never hand her over, even if I die." Amon fell silent. Yang Yi wasn't willing to give up Snowy, so this issue was quite impossible to solve. Meanwhile, Yang Yi stood up and smiled. "Forget that. Let's just drink tonight. Ha ha." He picked up the wine jug beside him and took a gulp. Amon glanced at him and remained silent. Yang Yi leaned against the wall and looked at the sky. He couldn't be emotionless like the Unfettered One in the end. The Unfettered One had no ties, so no one could stop him in this world. But Yang Yi couldn't do the same. He had his loved ones and friends. They were all his ties. Since he had ties, his sword could naturally not reach its limits. It was his flaw. It wasn't a flaw in his character, but a flaw in his sword Dao. Time trickled by, and the sun appeared on the horizon. Yang Yi glanced at Yu Jing and the others who were sleeping in the restaurant, and then he left. Once he left, he was about to leave the city when over a dozen people appeared before the city gates, and they were led by a young man. Yang Yi glanced at them. "Do you need something?" The young man looked Yang Yi in the eyes. "Hand over your immortal crystals." They were trying to rob him. "Ha ha! You're being robbed." Suddenly, roaring laughter came from behind Yang Yi. Yang Yi turned around and saw Yu Jing and the others. Yu Jing walked over to Yang Yi. "You didn't even say anything before leaving." Yang Yi smiled. "I wanted to let all of you sleep a while longer." "Nonsense." Yu Jing shook his head, and then he gazed at the young man's group. "What do you want to do with them?" At this moment, the young man and the others' expressions had changed. They couldn't discern Yang Ye's strength, but they could discern Yu Jing and the other's strength. They weren't existences their group could offend. Yang Yi gazed at the young man. "What were you doing before this?" The young man glanced at Yang Yi and said, "The young city governor of this city." Yang Yi glanced at the surroundings. "Why didn't you go to nature's sacred ground once the spirit energy here dried up?" "Nature sacred ground?" The young man laughed bitterly. "We'll get killed before we can even get there. We're only able to survive here because there's no spirit energy here. Because no one will come to fight for spirit energy here. But if we leave and go somewhere else, we'll probably die before we even know it." Yang Yi couldn't help but frown. The human race was in greater chaos than he'd expected. The human race's situation is considerably good. Meanwhile, Amon suddenly said, "You possess great prestige in the human race, so your order to make all the organizations help each other allowed the human race to be stable in overall. For example, the demon race, devil race, and some other races are on the verge of complete chaos. Even my barbaric race is the same. The barbaric king can only maintain the main forces of my race. So long as they don't fall into chaos, my race won't fall into chaos. But we can't do anything about the others below that." Yu Jing nodded. "It's the same for my sky race. The comparatively larger organizations are still able to remain at peace, but those below them are in chaos. The sovereign of sky's orders don't make a difference at all. Why, you're Yang Yi?" Suddenly, the young man gazed at Yang Yi. Yang Yi gazed at him and nodded. Thud. The young man suddenly knelt down. "King of Man, please help us." The others by his side knelt down as well. "King of Man." Yang Yi frowned. "It's you, of course." Meanwhile, Qin Chuan suddenly spoke. "You're the leader of the human race, so you're called the King of Man." "The King of Man." Yang Yi shook his head and gazed at the young man. He waved his right hand, and they were instantly made to stand by a gust of wind. Yang Yi found out from the young man that there had been many people in the city. While the spirit energy here was drying up, the city didn't fall into chaos. But not long ago, an organization called the Flame Sect came to the city and plundered it. "The Flame Sect?" Yang Yi frowned. "What is that?" The man spoke solemnly. "The Flame Sect is the strongest here. When the spirit energy here started to dry up, they started plundering spirit energy and immortal crystals all over there. Anyone who dared to resist would be slaughtered. Our city wasn't the only victim. All the other organizations in the vicinity suffered the same fate." Yang Ye's eyes narrowed slightly. "Didn't I give the order for all the organizations in the human dimension to help each other?" The young man laughed bitterly. "You're far away, so how could you possibly know about what they're doing here?" Yang Yi fell silent for a long time, and then he gazed at Qin Chuan. "We have 6 brothers here who are from the human race. I have a mission for all of you. Patrol the entire human dimension, and kill powerful organizations that are plundering spirit energy. Kill as many as there are. I'll tell Lian Shuang to help you. All right?" Qin Chuan nodded. "Leave it to us." He paused for a moment and added, "Are we really going to kill them? I'm afraid it'll bring adverse effects. After all, these things occur quite commonly." "Kill them." Yang Yi closed his eyes. "If we don't kill them now, it won't be long before the human dimension falls into chaos. At that time, even more will die. Since I've become the king of the human race must do as I say. Now, I want the human race to be united, so it must be united. I won't spare anyone who dares to take advantage of the situation." He was very well aware that he didn't forcefully put out these kindling flames. They would rage through the entire human dimension, and the human race would be beyond saving. Enemies from the outside weren't as terrifying as those within. Qin Chuan nodded. "All right, we'll get it done." He turned around and left with the others. Yang Yi gazed at the young man. "I'll deal with the Flame Sect. Take the others with you and go to nature's sacred ground. I'll get people to keep you safe. Try your best to obey the arrangements made for you once you get there." He paused for a moment and continued, "It's a critical moment now, so I can't give all of you a promise. All I can say is that I'll try to find a way out for the human race." The young man bowed respectfully to Yang Yi. "We believe you." He turned around and left with the others. If it was in the past, those fellows would be dead. Suddenly, Amon said, "You've become benevolent now." Yang Yi laughed bitterly. "They have no other choice at a time like this, and they aren't actually wicked people. It's just life that forced them to do it." Amon nodded. "Don't forget about the alliance of all. You have to find a way to resolve that problem." Yang Yi nodded, and then he gazed at the others. "Brothers, the end times is coming. Take care of yourself, and come look for me if you ever need help." He flicked a spatial ring to all of them. They were stunned when they saw its contents. Every single one of them had 100,000 immortal crystals. 100,000 immortal crystals. It was a huge amount of wealth at a time like this. It could be said that even their own clans and sects may not be able to produce this much. Now that they had this, they would be able to survive for a long time, even after the end times arrived. However, they fell silent as they gazed at the immortal crystals. Felt heavy. It wasn't that they refused to help Yang Yi. They had no other choice. Qin Chuan and the others could help Yang Yi openly because they were humans, but the others couldn't. If they helped Yang Yi, it was very likely to cause trouble for their clans and sections. Moreover, the alliance of all was the human race's enemy, so they would be branded as traitors if they helped Yang Yi. Even someone like Amon didn't try to take Yang Ye's side at a time like this. They were helpless. Truly helpless. The Flame Sect. Yang Yi left the city and arrived at the Flame Sect. It was situated on a mountain, and it seemed quite grand. It wasn't a small sect. Yang Yi went to the air above it and stomped down. Bang! The entire Flame Sect shook violently. Countless were shocked, and then over a dozen experts appeared before Yang Yi. Yang Yi asked, "Who's the sect master?" A middle-aged man stepped forward, glanced at Yang Yi, and asked, "Who are you?" Yang Yi said, "From now onward, change your ways and stop plundering, all right?" The middle-aged man's eyes narrowed slightly. "You're here to look for trouble." Yang Yi looked the middle-aged man in the eyes. "Yes or no?" The middle-aged man gazed at Yang Yi for a long time before he said, "Tell them that someone is here to look for trouble." An old man by his side nodded and withdrew a transmission stone. Hiss! 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 Suddenly, besides the middle-aged man, the heads of all the others just suddenly flew up into the air. The middle-aged man was stunned on the spot. Suddenly, a ray of red light appeared, and then a red palm stretched out from behind Yang Yi and claws at him. Yang Yi turned around, and he frowned when he saw the person before him. "It's you!" It was a woman who stood before Yang Yi, a woman in a red dress. Her hand immediately shot backward when she saw him. She was none other than the ancient cultivator from Moment Mountain who Yang Yi had met in the lower universe. Yang Yi had met her again in the dead dimension, and he'd never seen her in the large universe again. He hadn't expected to meet her here. She spoke solemnly. "It's you!" Yang Yi glanced at her. "Your evil alliance is behind the Flame Sect?" She glanced at him and nodded. Yang Yi spoke indifferently. "Looks like your evil alliance wants to cause trouble in the human dimension." She spoke solemnly. "We have no intention to become enemies with you." Yang Yi laughed coldly. "The Flame Sect has been plundering spirit energy and immortal stones, yet you say that." Suddenly, she waved her right hand, and the middle-aged man's body exploded apart. She gazed at Yang Yi. Is that enough? Yang Yi wasn't someone she could offend right now. While the evil alliance had some strength, but not to mention them, even the three paths were probably unwilling to rashly offend Yang Yi. Yang Yi looked her in the eyes. "Tell the evil progenitor of your evil alliance to stop causing trouble in my human dimension. Otherwise, I'll annihilate the evil alliance." Yang Yi turned around and left. Suddenly, she said, "I have some advice for you." Yang Yi stopped and turned around to look at her. She said, "Hand over the Sprite Lord, and you can go anywhere you want. Otherwise, you may not last these 3 months. It's just advice, and I have no intent to threaten you." Yang Yi asked, "What? Your evil alliance covets the Sprite Lord too?" She remained silent. Yang Yi smiled. "Since I started out in Profounder Continent, I've had so many enemies, but have I ever feared anyone? 3 months. Let me see if I die, or this large universe perishes after these 3 months." Yang Yi vanished into the sky once he finished speaking. The woman shook her head. "What a madman!" Yang Yi returned to nature's sacred grounds. The atmosphere here was quite heavy. While no wars had occurred, they were very well aware that everyone had their gazes on the human race, and war would come sooner or later. Once he returned to nature's sacred ground, Yang Yi entered the primordial pagoda. Cultivate. This time, he didn't cultivate his sword techniques, and he used the Blood Soul Pearl instead. He wanted to absorb it and improve his slaughter intent. Time trickled by. 2 months passed. During this time, Yang Yi had just been cultivating while Yang Lianshuang dealt with everything in the human dimension. As for the spirit energy in nature's sacred ground, it had started to dry up as well. But Snowy restored it. The news of Snowy restoring the spirit energy here quickly spread through the entire large universe. The Sprite Lord. At this moment, everyone committed that name to their memories. Madness. At this instant, countless people and organizations went mad because of it. Get the Sprite Lord and live. No one knew who started saying that, but it spread throughout the large universe. Who was the greatest barrier to obtaining the Sprite Lord? It wasn't the human race, it was Yang Yi. Yang Yi was the biggest barrier, so another saying arose. Kill Yang Yi. Get the Sprite Lord. And live. Yang Yi was still cultivating, and he ignored the outside world. Just like that, time trickled by, and 2 more weeks passed swiftly. Now, the entire large universe had started to fall into chaos. The enmity between all races grew deeper, and even the most stable human race started to fall into chaos. While experts were stopping it incessantly, if people wanted to survive, cultivate, and extend their lifespans, then they needed immortal crystals. They couldn't survive without them. For the sake of their survival, many experts of the human race started to cause trouble. The conflict between everyone grew more and more intense. As for the time limit the alliance of all gave Yang Yi, it was almost up. Martial Emperor Academy. The Vice Dean walked into a Nanjing's room and bowed slightly to her. She opened her eyes. Go on. The Vice Dean said. Besides those 3 you killed, 7 other sages are willing to take your side and obey your command. As for the rest, they've left the academy. And Nanjing nodded. Let's go. The Vice Dean asked. Where? And Nanjing said. The human dimension. The Vice Dean asked. Are you really going to bet the entire academy? She gazed at him. The academy doesn't have to come. She vanished on the spot once she finished speaking. The Vice Dean laughed bitterly. Suddenly, a voice resounded in his mind. Listen to her. The Vice Dean was shocked, and then he stopped hesitating and left. The weapon path. Above the river deep within the bamboo forest, the weapon progenitor sat cross-legged in midair while the Buddhist progenitor was seated not too far away from him. The sovereign of sky, demon god, spirit god, devil monarch, shaman emperor, and barbaric king were around them. Besides the sovereign of sky, all of them were halfway into the progenitor realm. The weapon progenitor glanced at them. Since you're all here, I presume you've made your decision. So I won't say more. Can I join too? Suddenly, a voice resounded. They looked over and saw a woman in a violet dress floating over. It was none other than the pavilion master of Nether Pavilion, Xianxia. The weapon progenitor frowned slightly. A clone, she smiled. My main body can come at any moment. The weapon progenitor's frown eased up, and he nodded slightly. Welcome. Then count me in too. Another voice resounded from afar. It was a middle-aged man with crimson-red hair, and he emanated a dense evil aura. It was the evil progenitor of the Evil Alliance. He was a progenitor-level expert as well. Besides the 4 paths, there naturally were other progenitors. However, they kept a rather low profile in comparison, and they practically never showed themselves in public. The evil progenitor had once fought in the battle to annihilate the god race all those years ago. How can you count me out? Suddenly, another voice resounded, and then a black shadow appeared here. The devil monarch's expression changed at the sight of him, and he hurriedly stood up. Ancestor! It was the devil progenitor. Yang Yi had met the devil progenitor in the past, but it had been in the lower universe. Another progenitor. 4 progenitors, and Xiaoxia's main body was equivalent to 5 progenitors. Such a force could be considered as the strongest in the large universe. The weapon progenitor closed his eyes slowly. Then let's begin. At the main peak of the slaughter line in the weapon dimension, an old man was sweeping. It was Elder Yuan, whom Yang Yi had interacted quite a bit with. Zhong Yi was standing nearby. Zhong Yi looked up at the sky and said, It's starting. Elder Yuan replied indifferently, Yes. Zhong Yi asked, What do you think about it? Elder Yuan put down the broom in his grasp and looked up at the sky. The large universe will perish. Zhong Ye's pupils constricted. Senior Heaven Secret, you. The old man was the founder of Heaven's Secret Hall who had vanished for a long time. Senior Heaven Secret. The God Battlefield. In the hall within the underground city. Zhir sat at the seat of the host, and Ding Xiaoyao was by her side. Even though she was the patriarch of the God race now, Ding Xiaoyao was dealing with most things in the God race. It was Zhir who wanted her to do it, because the strategist's position was merely inferior to the patriarch in the God race. There were 25 figures below them. The 10 on the left wore luxurious white robes, and the 10 on the right wore black robes. As for those at the center, those 5 were middle-aged men in violet armor. The evil Yin sprite was by Zhir and Ding Xiaoyao's side. The royal crocodile was lying on the ground outside the hall. All the experts of the God race were gathered here. The hall was extremely silent, and a long time passed before Ding Xiaoyao opened her eyes. The sprite lord! Zhir lowered her head slightly. She knew that Ding Xiaoyao had made her choice. Ding Xiaoyao looked forward emotionlessly in silence. The prehistoric ruins. The casket had shattered, and a figure was floating above it. Just like that, the hall remained extremely quiet for a long time. Suddenly, a voice resounded. Chaos has arrived. My lord, please prepare yourself. The hall fell silent once the figure finished speaking. Initial spirit star. On the platform deep within the city, the sacrificial altar suddenly started trembling. Some time passed before a voice filled with madness resounded. Ha ha! Spirit energy has collapsed. It has collapsed. After countless years, it has finally collapsed. Ha ha! Along with that insane voice, the entire ruins of the city was covered in a barrier of light, and then the barrier gradually dimmed down. It dimmed down because spirit energy was gradually vanishing. Time flashed by quickly, and the 3-month period was over. In the depths of a bamboo forest in the lower universe, an armless man was staring blankly at a painting on the wall in a bamboo house. It was a painting of Yang Ye's mother. A long time passed before he suddenly walked closer to it. You were, in my entire lifetime, I, Yang Wudi, never let down the heavens or the earth, but I let both of you down. Year has grown up and he can take care of himself. As for you, don't worry, I'll come accompany you soon. He walked out of the bamboo house once he finished speaking. Outside the bamboo house, there were 5 progenitors. The weapon progenitor, Buddhist progenitor, devil progenitor, Xiaoxiao's main body, and the evil progenitor. 5 progenitors. Yang Wudi walked out of the bamboo house and went over to them. He smiled as he gazed at them. What a huge force! You're Yang Ye's father, right? Meanwhile, Xiaoxiao stepped forward. I investigated you. You're from the Yang clan, and you were driven to Profounder Continent when something happened to you all those years ago. You met Yang Ye's mother in Profounder Continent, and then you suddenly vanished after Yang Yi was born. I'm really curious, what were you up to during those years that you vanished? Yang Wudi glanced at her and asked, Xiaoxiao. Xiaoxiao smiled. Yes, he grinned. I can tell you that I vanished all these years to deal with someone. She asked. Who? He chuckled. Go figure. Xiaoxiao frowned slightly. However, Yang Wudi ignored her and gazed at the weapon progenitor and the others. Looks like you chose to take the sprite lord in the end. The weapon progenitor replied indifferently. Are you very surprised? He shook his head. Not at all. It's within my expectations. He glanced at the others and said, Then bring it. As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished into the sky. The other progenitors vanished with him. Far away in outer space, a shocking battle soundlessly began. It went on for 3 days and 3 nights, and countless expanses of space were blasted apart while countless smaller universes were obliterated. However, it didn't cause a commotion because the area had been sealed off. On the 4th day, the battle finally stopped. In an expanse of collapsed space, a man laid there silently, and endless black holes and shattered space surrounded him. It was Yang Wudi. A long time passed before a middle-aged man suddenly arrived here. He was the martial emperor. The martial emperor gazed at the middle-aged man for a long time and said, "Brother Yang, farewell." He turned around and left. Just like that, the surroundings fell quiet again. Around 2 hours later, a middle-aged man in a cloud-white robe appeared. However, his figure was slightly ethereal. Obviously, it wasn't his main body. The middle-aged man gazed at Yang Wudi's corpse for a long time, and then he said, "I only had 2 opponents in my life. Now I only have 1. The middle-aged man waved his right hand, and then 3 rays of sword energy protected Yang Wudi's corpse. An instant later, he vanished. At a certain corner, a woman in a white dress stood there silently. It was Ding Xiaoyao. She closed her eyes slowly. Even when injured, he was still able to heavily injure 5 progenitors. "Yang Wudi, you really live up to your name of being invincible." She turned around and left. The human dimension, nature's sacred grounds. Yang Yi left the primordial pagoda and arrived in the hall there. The sages of the human race were gathered here, and everyone gazed at him. Yang Yi spoke softly, "Are they here?" Yang Lianshuang nodded. Yang Yi grinned. "All right, we'll deal with them in one go." Yang Yi led the others out of the hall. Outside, or to be more precise, in the sky above the human dimension, the area had been sealed off. There were around 100 sages in the sky above nature's sacred ground. 100 sages. This time, the Alliance of All had sent all its elites and hadn't held back at all. All of their sages were here. Their goal was very simple. It was to kill Yang Yi and take the Sprite Lord. The demon god was leading the group. The demon god looked down at Yang Yi. "Yang Yi, hand over the Sprite Lord. Then you and the human race can live. Otherwise, all of you will die. This is your last chance. Hand over the Sprite Lord." All the sages of the human race fell silent. The Alliance of All's goal was very simple. They wouldn't stop until they obtained the Sprite Lord. Meanwhile, one of the human sages hesitated to speak. "Young brother Yang." Yang Yi glanced at the other sages, and all of them remained silent. Actually, Yang Yi knew what they were thinking. As far as they were concerned, the human race and Yang Yi would be saved if Yang Yi handed over the Sprite Lord, and that was worth it no matter what. The human race couldn't allow itself to be annihilated for a Sprite Lord. It wasn't just the sages here who thought in that way. Practically 90% or more of the human race was of the same opinion. Meanwhile, Snowy and Tianxiu appeared in front of Yang Yi. Snowy gazed at Yang Yi and waved her claws while tears flowed incessantly from her. Her tears evaporated and quickly covered the area in mist. She was telling him to give her to them. She was willing to do that. Tianxiu didn't say a word and just gazed at them. As he gazed at Snowy, who was crying incessantly, Yang Yi suddenly started roaring with laughter, and his laughter reverberated like a thunderclap through the sky. Everyone gazed at Yang Yi. They naturally didn't dare look down on Yang Yi. He was someone who possessed the strength to instantly kill sages. Not to mention that Yang Yi had a Nanjing by his side. So they didn't dare to underestimate Yang Yi at all. A short while passed before Yang Yi stopped, and then he gazed at Snowy, who was still crying, and said, "As the king of the human race, I should think for the good of the entire race. I won't let the human race down, but I won't let you down either, Snowy. From this moment onward, I, Yang Yi, have nothing to do with the human race." He looked up into the sky and continued, "You want the Sprite Lord? Come get her." As soon as he finished speaking, he took Snowy and Tianxiu in his arms before leaving. Abandon Snowy for the human race? He couldn't do that. He couldn't. He didn't blame the human race for not taking his side and protecting Snowy with him. So, he chose to leave with Snowy and face the sages of the Alliance of All on his own. Once Yang Yi left, the monkey and Xianxia left with him. Besides that, one more person left, and it was a Nanjing. However, the sages of Martial Emperor Academy didn't go with her. Yang Yi stopped far away in outer space because the demon gods group were in front of him. The monkey and Nanjing and Xianxia were by Yang Ye's side. 2 humans, 2 demons, and 100 sages. Based on their numbers, Yang Ye's side was at an utter disadvantage. Yang Yi gazed at a Nanjing, smiled, and then gazed at the monkey and Xianxia, Both of you can leave. The alliance of all was after him, and he didn't want them to lose their lives here. The monkey shook his head. When I was in danger, only you lent me a hand. Now, you are in danger, so how can I leave? Xianxia wanted to say something, but the monkey shook his head. There's no need to say anything else. Xianxia couldn't do anything about the monkey's decision, so he gazed at Xianxia. Xianxia was about to speak when Xianxia grabbed him by the shoulder and forcefully transported him into the primordial pagoda. In an instant, the primordial pagoda suppressed Xianxia. It wasn't that he felt Xianxia was too weak. It was that Xianxia may be killed in an instant if he joined a battle of this level. Now only Xianxia and Nanjing and the monkey remained. But there were 100 sages before them. Suddenly, the monkey stepped forward. Allow me to start this battle. As soon as he said that, the monkey waved his right hand. In an instant, a burning red golden rod appeared in his grasp. At the same time, he hurled it at the demon god and the other sages. The golden rod grew larger and larger. In an instant, it was almost 3 kilometers long, and the powerful force it carried caused space to turn ethereal. It was a clear display of how terrifying the energy within it was. The monkey's attack was so shocking that the demon god and the others didn't dare to act carelessly. An entire 20 sages immediately charged at him. 20 sages. The monkey wasn't able to defeat them, but his eyes carried no fear, and there was only battle intent, blazing battle intent. Xianxia gazed at a Nanjing. Be careful, and Nanjing nodded, and then Elysium appeared in her right grasp. After that, it started trembling, and rays of terrifying pressure seeped out from within it. An instant later, and Nanjing stomped her right foot down, and she transformed into a beam of light that shot at their enemies. Xianxia slowly closed his eyes as he stood on the spot. An impossible dilemma. Xianxia had Snowy, so the Alliance of All would never let him go. But when the Alliance of All's army really came, the sages of the human race chose to make a compromise. He didn't blame them for that choice, because if sacrificing a single person and a sprite lord could bring peace to the human race, then the sages of the human race and the entire human race itself would agree to that. Xianxia chose to be understanding toward that, so he chose to leave. From now onward, the matters of the human race had nothing to do with him. He was him and they were they. Their life and death had nothing to do with each other. It was the choice that he and the human race had made. Xianxia remained silent for a moment, and then he suddenly opened his eyes. 2 rays of blood-red light flashed from them. At the same time, a strand of terrifying slaughter intent swept out from within him. In just an instant, the entire area had turned scarlet red. Slaughter intent. Powerful slaughter intent that could affect the minds of sages. All the sages were shocked, and they circulated their profound energy to resist it. A moment later, a sword appeared in his grasp, and he started walking slowly in the demon god's direction. Even if I die here today, I'll bury all of you with me. Bring it. A ray of blood-red sword energy flashed forward. In an instant, an ear-piercing sword howl resounded through the battlefield, and the entire expanse of space here cracked open. Moreover, the cracks were spreading rapidly. In just a short while, the space in a huge area had cracked open. It was an extremely shocking sight. 3 against 100 sages. Could they win? Of course not. However, Xianxia had no other choice. At this point in time, he had to fight even if he faced 1,000 sages. Powerful energy surged out incessantly from Xianxia's blood-red sword energy. At this moment, the battlefield couldn't endure it any longer and collapsed. The surroundings were transformed into a black hole. Suddenly, the demon god closed his eyes slowly, and then a terrifying force soundlessly appeared. Right when Xianxia's sword energy arrived around 3 m before him, the demon god suddenly opened his eyes. At that instant, his right hand transformed into a claw that was shaped like a dragon claw yet wasn't one. It was strangely curved. In an instant, the claw slapped Xianxia's sword energy. Bang! Xianxia's sword energy was slapped into bits. Suddenly, a sword arrived. The demon god's expression didn't change at all, and he raised the claw to block it. Bang! Powerful force surged out, and some of the other sages were blasted backward repeatedly. Ferocity appeared on the demon god's face. Yang Yi, you're going to die today. He shook his claw as he spoke. Bang! A strand ripple of energy surged out, and it instantly blasted Yang Yi away. At the same time, he grasped his claw in Yang Yi's direction from afar. Bang! The area around Yang Yi exploded apart, but Yang Yi suddenly appeared behind the demon god. An instant later, a sword stabbed into the demon god's back. It stabbed in slightly, causing blood to spray, but it couldn't go any further, because the demon god's body had turned into that of a demon beast. Or to be more precise, he'd returned to his true form. His body was like an ape. He was extremely tall and wide like a hill, but while he looked like an ape, he wasn't one. His body was covered in scales that seemed like the scales of a dragon, and he had 2 sharp and long horns on his head. Those horns glimmered with a cold glow. Heaven-shaking dragon ape. Yang Yi immediately recognized the identity of the demon god's true form. It was naturally because he'd read many books in Martial Emperor Academy, and it didn't just contain the history of the various races. There was information on many powerful demon beasts and other experts. The heaven-shaking dragon ape, a descendant of the dragon race and spirit ape race of the ancient times. During that time, the dragon race was the strongest, and very few could fight it. The spirit ape race was one of them. Their union gave birth to descendants that possessed the strength of dragons and spirit apes, and the union of these 2 forces could simply shake the heavens. The heavens here didn't just represent any heavens but the entire heavens of the large universe. At the moment Yang Yi's sword had stabbed into his back, the demon god had reacted swiftly and instantly returned to his true form. As soon as he did that, powerful force blasted Yang Yi and his sword away. Yang Yi flew over 30 kilometers away. The demon god gazed at Yang Yi from afar. Yang Yi, they saw you're the #1 expert below the progenitor realm. Come, let me see if it's true. As soon as he finished speaking, he raised his right claw and slapped it down. The world shook before it. Yang Yi's eyes narrowed slightly, and then blood-red mist seeped out from his eyes. After that, he transformed into a ray of light that shot up into the air, and powerful blood-red sword energy tore through the black hole as it stabbed against the demon god's palm. Crack! The demon god's palm instantly cracked open, and then the blood-red sword energy pierced through and arrived before the demon god. Suddenly, the demon god howled with fury. Bang! A powerful sound wave rippled out, and it instantly blasted Yang Yi away. It was like a dragon roar. At the instant he was blasted away, Yang Yi's sword left his grasp and transformed into a ray of light that shot at the demon god. Hiss! The sound of something being sliced open resounded. It was the sound wave. It was quite deafening. Judgment arrived in front of the demon god, and it was covered in sharp and powerful sword energy. This attack was capable of slicing through anything before it. Viciousness flashed through the demon god's eyes, and he clenched his left fist and slammed it forward. Boom! It was like a tornado swept out from his fist, and powerful force instantly obliterated the black hole in the surroundings once more. As for Judgment, it was blasted away again, and it started to crack open as it flew. In the end, Judgment descended before Yang Yi. At this moment, the sharp sword energy around it was gone. Yang Yi placed his right hand on Judgment's hilt. Meanwhile, Judgment spoke softly. Sorry, I can't help you anymore. Yang Yi grinned, but his smile was slightly pale. He was about to speak when Judgment suddenly shattered. It had shattered completely. Yang Yi stared blankly at the fragments before him, and then he waved his right hand and collected them all. I'm sorry. Yang Yi closed his eyes slowly, and then a sword howl shot up into the air and surged through the universe. In an instant, a sword floated before Yang Yi. The sword precursor. The sword was the sword precursor. He'd left it in his sea of consciousness to nurture it, and now he'd taken it out. Yang Yi held the sword precursor in his grasp, and a strange feeling appeared within him. It wasn't a sword. It was a part of his body. That was what he felt right now. The sword precursor's level wasn't as high as Judgment or the Sword Supreme, but at this moment, it had truly merged into one with Yang Yi's heart and mind. Yang Yi was the sword, and the sword was Yang Yi. He'd truly become one with the sword spirit. Yang Yi held the sword precursor in his grasp as he walked toward the demon god. Yang Yi seemed tiny like an ant before the demon god's huge body. Even someone as powerful as the demon god didn't dare to be careless when facing Yang Yi. From the very beginning, he'd treated Yang Yi as an expert in the same realm of cultivation as him. From the beginning of the battle, he hadn't looked down on Yang Yi at all, and he'd put his full strength in every attack. Suddenly, Yang Yi stopped. In an instant, a wave of mysterious energy appeared in the surroundings. The sword domain. Yang Yi activated the sword domain once more. As soon he activated the sword domain, Yang Yi pressed the sword precursor against his forehead. In an instant, endless sword intent swept out from within him, and the sword domain was instantly filled by sword intent. A moment later, ethereal swords appeared within the sword domain. The invincible sword domain. The demon god had a solemn look in his eyes, and he slowly clenched his fists. In an instant, thick scales appeared all around him, and they shined with a black glow. Besides that, threads of energy flowed around him, and they ceaselessly flowed like arcs of lightning. Yang Yi slowly closed his eyes. Slash! As soon as he said that, countless sword howls resounded. And then the entire sword domain was filled with rays of light. At the moment the sword howl resounded, the demon god suddenly stretched out his hands. In an instant, the energy flowing around him surged into his palms, and then he leaped forward and slapped them down at Yang Yi. Boom! As soon as the force from his palms surged out, explosions resounded, and the space in the surroundings was obliterated repeatedly. At this moment, the space here was truly deathly silent, and it would take tens of thousands of years to be restored. The battlefield was silent for a moment, and then countless rays of sword energy flickered once more. Just like that, it went on for around 15 minutes before everything returned to calm. At this moment, Yang Yi and the demon god were standing facing each other from afar. Blood was seeping out incessantly from the corner of Yang Ye's mouth, and the demon god's body was covered in marks from Yang Ye's sword. Blood was incessantly seeping out from the demon god's body, and because his body was so huge, it seemed extremely shocking, like a river of blood was flowing out of him. The demon god gazed at Yang Yi. Yang Yi, I rarely admire anyone, but I have to admire you. You possess such strength at your age. Suddenly, Yang Yi vanished on the spot, and then he appeared behind the demon god. An instant later, the sword domain appeared, and then Yang Yi roared with fury as he stabbed his sword into the demon god's back with both hands. The demon god's expression changed drastically when he sensed this. He hadn't expected Yang Yi to be able to execute such a terrifying attack at this point in their battle. Because of his size, he couldn't dodge at all, nor could he counterattack. He could only passively defend himself and attack. In an instant, countless scales converged on his back to protect the point Yang Ye's sword was descending toward. Bang! The demon god's enormous body shook violently. He was about to seize the opportunity to flash away, but Yang Yi suddenly howled hysterically with rage and twisted his sword with both hands. Hiss! A moment later, Yang Yi and his sword stabbed through the demon god, and the latter's body stiffened on the spot. Crack! A moment of silence ensued, and then countless rays of sword energy surged out from within the demon god. In an instant, the demon god's huge body split open into countless pieces that rained down from midair. The demon god was dead. Suddenly, Yang Yi walked out slowly from the mist of blood created from the demon god's death, and then he gazed at the other sages in the surroundings. He slowly raised his sword at them and spoke ferociously, "Bring it!"